what Kamala Harris didn't do as a senator and the attorney general when she was representing California. Well, let's look into her record on tonight. Tyrone Bowman Live. Thank you for joining me on the program on this evening, and hope what you're going to hear is going to help you decide. According to the newspaper called The Week, the headline reads, "What did Kamala Harris accomplish as a California senator and attorney general? How the Democratic presidential candidate's state-level achievements might inform her national ambitions." So let's talk about that right now. If you like Tyrone Bowman Live, kindly subscribe to the channel. Appreciate it. Thank you. So this is according to The Week U.S. published August 14, 2024. As the Democratic Party's presumptive presidential nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris currently stands within striking distance of the White House. Accordingly, her tenure as both California's Attorney General and Senator is sure to come under increased scrutiny by Democrats eager to accentuate the positives of their candidate's record, as well as by Republicans hoping to exploit their opponents' potential weaknesses. Within a decade of state-level service under her belt, or with a decade of state-level service under her belt, she served as AG or Attorney General from 2011 to 2017, and as Senator from 2017 to 2021. Harris's performance as an elected official is fair game for dissection, and perhaps more importantly, protestination as to what her presidency might look like. I think I mispronounced that word. As a matter of fact, I know I did, my bad. Here are some of Harris's most noteworthy accomplishments as both AG and California's U.S. Senator. All right, let's talk about her record on health care. As a senator, Harris spent much of her time focusing on mental health, telemedicine, and drug pricing, with a particular focus on maternal health, especially Black maternal health. So the roll call said, Harris was the first senator to co-sponsor Bernie Sanders' bill, the Medicare for All Act of 2017, which would have abolished private health insurance for all age groups and establish a government-run single-payer system to benefit every individual who is a resident of the United States, including undocumented immigrants, according to Forbes. Ultimately, much of Harris's health care agenda as a senator didn't particularly succeed, with many of her bills showing little chance of passing in the then Republican-led chamber, according to Politico. Well, of course the bills didn't pass because Republicans didn't want them to pass. It's not that her proposals on health care was wrong. She was spot on. But when you have a Republican-controlled Senate, why would they want to agree with her? Because that would make them look bad. For Republicans, their whole MO is make the Democrats look bad and then cry foul when things don't get done. That's what they do. So what is her record on criminal justice and reform? Harris has long been criticized by her background as tough on crime attorney general back in California. According to NPR, or the National Public Radio said, as AG, she appealed a federal court ruling that would have effectively ended the death penalty in the state. The Marshall Project said, her office also fought to release fewer prisoners even after the U.S. Supreme Court found that overcrowding in California prisons was so bad that it amounted to unconstitutional, cruel, and unusual punishment, according to Vox. As California's top lawyer, she also pushed for statewide anti-truancy measures in which some parents were arrested by local law enforcement and faced harsher penalties. She later expressed regret for the policy's unintended consequences in an interview with Pod Save America. Harris's AG office also authored a legal brief denying gender-affirming care for transgender inmates in state prisons, a position. Now, Donald Trump and his people lied. Now listen, you got to pay attention to what Republicans are not saying. Don't you know that in prisons in America, you cannot discriminate against the LGBTQ community, not even in prison? Because they will have massive lawsuits on their hands. That is a stipulated fact. And there are a lot of transgender people who are in prison, whether folks like it or not. And within everybody's family, people have members of their family that are part of the LGBTQ lifestyle and community. So don't act like they're not. This hypocrisy, this double tongue, double standard stuff that we hear every single day, because individuals think they can get away with it because they don't think anyone is paying attention. This is where you're wrong. I'm paying attention. And I'm a fact finder, and I do my homework, and I do it thoroughly. So, a position she attributed to having had clients, and one of them was the California Department of Corrections. It was their policy. After learning of the policy, she worked behind the scenes and got them to change the policy, Harris said. As senator, Harris crossed the aisle to introduce a reform bill with arch-conservative Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, promising to reform a bail system that is discriminatory and wasteful in a New York Times opinion. She was also a major figure in a House police reform bill in the summer of 2020, as well as one of the main sponsors of a bill to make lynching a federal crime, according to National Public Radio. So what's wrong with that? How can people be so blind and not do their homework? Y'all just get a piece of paper and read propaganda. That's what Hitler did, you know. Hitler printed out millions and millions and millions of propagandist leaflets and fled Germany with them. Put it all in the streets for people just to go ahead and just look at them. Because it was from Hitler's point of view. The Hitler ideology, the Hitler manifesto, the Hitler propaganda machine, pretty much like Trump. Where do you think he gets his ideology from? From Mein Kampf, which means my story. That's a book he's well acquainted with because he reads it a lot. I have read it as well, many times. So I don't let people just tell me anything. I pay attention, read, research, analyze. And as I said, my audience is predominantly black, and I'm going to take my time and talk so my people can understand who they're voting for election day. We have to vote the entire ballot, up and down, not just at the top of the ticket. As I've said before, senators are up for grabs. The legislative branch is up for grabs. Congress is up for grabs. Local people in your community, their positions are up for grabs. Don't be naive. Don't just take some leaflet or pamphlet somebody gives you when you walk into the voting booth. When they go to give me stuff, I let them know I am a well-informed, educated voter. I don't need any pamphlets from the Republicans or the Democrats, because when I go into the voting booth, I already know who I'm going to vote for. And you should know that as well. Don't let people do your thinking for you. Do your own thinking for yourself. So let's talk about Harris's work on the committee. During her short time in the Senate, Harris shined in hearings with her point. Oh, let me go back to something. She worked across the aisle with Republican Rand Paul and other Republicans, but they don't want to tell you that because that's going to make Trump look bad. And Trump doesn't want to hear about unity. He only wants to hear about divisiveness, rage, anger, hate, bitterness. Anything that's going to try to make him look good, to try to get his point across. Well, how well is that working? How's it working out for you? When you set out to deliberately and systematically distort a person's record, try to destroy their life, all in the name of political campaigning, but the Trump campaign can't take the heat when it comes into their own kitchen. During her short time in the Senate, Harris shined in hearings with her pointed prosecutorial questioning of witnesses, according to PBS News said. Her assertive courtroom style created some of her most high-profile moments in the Senate, according to the roll call. citing Harris's questioning of both attorneys, General Bill Barr and Jeff Sessions, to make bigger points. Bill Barr, who was Trump's attorney general, couldn't just come before the Senate Judiciary Committee and say anything out of his mouth. He aided and abetted everything that Trump did, then tried to disavow it and turn on Trump. He'll be voting for Trump in the November election. Don't pay Bill Barr no mind. So her stance on the environment as Attorney General, Harris has joined local prosecutors to bring criminal charges against operators of a failed oil pipeline that polluted roughly 100 miles of California beaches, according to Inside Climate News. Although the case didn't end in any jail time for the perpetrators, state and local officials collected millions of dollars on behalf of businesses and individuals who were harmed by the spill. Isn't that what big corporations do? They only care about profits. They only care about the profits for the shareholders. If it means destroying people's lives in the name of commercialization, in the name of capital greed, do it. Forget about the everyday people. It's just business. Although the case, so it didn't end. She also co-sponsored the resolution calling for a Green New Deal and was to the left of Joe Biden on the Green New Deal in 2019, when both were vying for the Democratic presidential nomination. Now here's the big one. Let's find out what her stance on immigration is, because they keep trying to say, her failed policies, you stupid Republicans. She is not the president. So how can they be her policies that you keep talking about in political ads? She is the vice president, not the president. Oh, I've got an October surprise for you all as we get closer to the elections. I have a big October surprise coming. As senator during her 2020 run for the White House, Harris called for a path to citizenship for recipients of Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals Program, best known as DACA, according to NPR. She also was among the co-sponsors of a Democratic-led bill to expedite the reunification of separated immigrant families and promote humane alternatives for asylum-seeking immigrant families in response to the Trump administration's hardline immigration policies. I told you all before, his hardline immigration policies only applies to black and brown people. He sent thousands of Haitians back to Haiti after they voted for him in 2016, and he said that he wasn't going to send them back, and then he turned around and did it. Liar. Anybody white that comes here, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, he already said he wanted them to come from Sweden and Norway and all those places. They're welcome to become immigrants. But anybody who looks like me, comes from Africa, or African-aligned nation, or from Jamaica or Barbados, or any other place, why do you think Gandhi stood up against the British Empire? Because they were being discriminated against because of the brownness of their skin. These are things you all don't like to hear because they're hardcore truths. Nelson Mandela wouldn't have had to end up in Robbins Island in prison for 27 years if apartheid hadn't been aided and abetted by the other white European nations. And then you get mad because Mandela, who was an African educated lawyer, he was no idiot, when he stood up and fought for his own people. That's what he was supposed to do. And if profits is all that people want to have, talking about how much money they have, you're not going to take any of it with you when you die. Now, $1 is going into the coffin with you. Your degrees aren't going, your money isn't going, you're not taking your houses, you're not taking anything with you when you leave here. People will die with hundreds of millions of dollars in a bank account and leave it to a cat, instead of setting up an organization that can feed the hungry, clothe the naked, help the poor. They're called immigrants for a reason. Black people were not welcome to Robben Island. My ancestors were brought here as slaves. I don't care how much you all try to get away from the conversation. I won't let you get away from the conversation because it is a stipulated fact. And the horrors of slavery can't even be told because of how disgusting and pathetic and vile and abominable it was. Harris additionally urged her colleagues to reject President Trump's FY19 funding requests for a costly and ineffective border wall, new Border Patrol agents, and a large increase in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, for personnel and detention beds in a letter to members of the Senate Appropriations Committee in 2018. These are things that you all have to pay attention to. Don't let them gaslight you. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them come up with some garbage and some crap and some mess that they just spew. Harris is not going to be any worse than all these white men who were presidents in this nation. Now let that sink in. She's more qualified than Trump, and you know it. And if Harris does become president and she has a Republican-controlled Senate and a Republican-controlled Congress, they will stonewall and block everything that she attempts to do. The same way that when Mitch McConnell and all his racist buddies, the day that Barack Obama was sworn as president, they were down there in one of those swank cigar room smoked hotels, sitting down planning how they were going to destroy Barack Obama's presidency. That's what they did. They didn't even have the decency to attend the inaugural celebration of America's first black president. Frankly, we don't give a damn. We don't care if you don't like Barack Obama. We don't like y'all. We're not going to beg these white racists in power for nothing. We are a monolithic voting bloc. We can pool our resources together, which will add up to over maybe $10 trillion or more. And we can boycott those who do not fight for us and fight for our causes. Don't shop where you're not respected. Stop taking all your hard-earned dollars and pouring them into racist stores and racist corporations. Look what happened to the former president and CEO of that pizza chain. This is not a game, black people, my black brothers and sisters. Get your heads out of the sand and get ready to vote on election day. Handle your business and do what you have to do. No one has to pay you to vote. Vote because it's your constitutional right to vote. Vote because your ancestors bled, died, and sweat, and walked hundreds of thousands of miles. Vote. Vote because they fought the hardcore battles through segregation, Jim Crow, and everything else. So you have the right to sit back and talk about, you're not going to vote, I'm not going to vote for Kamala Harris because of how she treats black men. How do black men treat black men every single day in America? I hear the M word being slung around all day by my people. Until you get mad when white people call you out of your name, then you should stop calling each other out of your name as well. Have some respect for yourself and for your heritage, for your lineage, for your ancestry, for posterity's sake. Kamala for the win. Never surrender.